I can't wait to get back on the road again. Back again. Dude, like for the Americans. Back home again. Back home again. In Indiana land.
What's up? Welcome to Dirtyard Dish, Season 4, Episode 5, where you've got the Hot Stove Week 2 recap, Circle City Free Agency. I'm here with first-time Dirtyard Dish co-host Thomas Hopkins, the league shit talker, the captain of the Pork Pistols, the ship that is constantly sinking. Thomas, how you doing, man?
Wonderful. Thanks for having me.
No problem, man. So we're here. We're week 2. We just finished. I think we have 12 official signings now in Circle City Wiffle. I'm of the opinion that this has been a really good thing for Circle City as a whole, for the league. I think it's been exciting. What do you think about it?
I think it's been great for the league. It's worked out really well for the Pork Pistols so far. So, selfishly, I think it's great. But if we're thinking about the league, I think it's awesome. So far, we're 4 signings in, and all the teams are pretty even, in my opinion. And that's all you can ask for in a league, is that everybody's got a shot.
I agree. You talk about all of us being even, and we'll get to that a little later down the line when we talk about our power rankings. Before we get into that, you're not of what we would call the OG Wiffle circle for Circle City Wiffle. So tell me a little bit about your background in wiffle ball, maybe softball. What led you to Circle City Wiffle Ball? How'd you end up right here on Dirtyard Dish tonight?
Well, we actually played wiffle ball before we got into slow pitch softball. Back in college, at Hanover, me and some of the other Pork Pistols, before we were called Pork Pistols, played in a campus-wide wiffle ball tournament every spring, where the entire campus got involved in it, 70-plus teams every year, and we won it twice. So we, obviously loved playing. Graduated, went on to slow pitch softball, and had some success with that. And when the YMCA had their tournament a few years ago, we signed up just because we wanted to get back out there and see if we still had it. And I think it was either you or Rudy was there and made an announcement that you guys had a league on the south side that was, looking to grow. And, I've joked with you before that I reached out to you shortly after and you ignored me. But luckily I'm pretty persistent. So I finally got a hold of you and got us into the league, and the rest is history now.
I do think when we were talking about it the other night, I think it was an email. So that had to have been 2000. You joined in 2019. So 2017, 2018 had to have been the first time you reached out, which would have put me like smack dab in my college career. And as you can tell, I mean, we've made a ton of progress since you've joined the league. But before then, we were pretty bare bones. Responding to things was on, one of the least of my worries. So to hear that you reached out and I probably pushed you to the back burner is no surprise to me. So I think that the Hanover, it's funny, the Hanover tournament is something that I had read about. There was nothing online about it, but somehow just through some posts that I had read how many teams like Hanover College gets for this tournament. And it sounded pretty sick. So it's cool that you come from that. You play a wiffle ball and you play slow pitch softball. They're each like in their own lame category of former baseball players, like washed up baseball guys. How do they compare? How are they similar? How are they different?
Probably not very many similarities besides the basic rules of running the bases and scoring runs. I mean, slow pitch softball, they're throwing the ball in at 30 miles an hour and you get to tee off on it. Wiffle ball it defies physics, in my opinion, when you got guys out there throwing a ball that, rises and cuts all over the place. You can't predict where it's going. It was a bit of an adjustment for us, and you can see even baseball guys who have a history of baseball come in and struggle with it because it's not even baseball. They're not used to seeing a ball do what a wiffle ball does. So it certainly gives you an advantage to have played baseball, but it doesn't guarantee you success.
I mean, I'm that's spot on. I think some of our best players are guys that either weren't baseball players or were baseball guys that struggled as baseball players. It's a completely different swing, like you mentioned. So Thomas Hopkins, that's who we're with tonight. He's you've been just an amazing asset to the league. You've provided, not only manpower, brain power, but you've provided some of our signage out there. So really grateful to have you for real. And let's get into what we're supposed to be talking about, I guess. We are, like I said, we just finished week 2, so I'm going to go through and give a cap update for each of the teams, and just name who they signed in week 2. Thomas has promised that kind of rhymed. Thomas has promised that he's going to provide a little spice. He heard Alex and Rudy talk. He said, I'm done with that soft crap. I'm talking shit this episode. So here we go. Moonshots, they've got 21.3 cap space available after signing Austin Church, the CCW OG. The Pistols have 21.6. They signed Nick Bundy this week. He's one of CCW's best power hitters, especially when it comes to slow pitch. The Hounds have 40.1 available. They signed not Dustin Dowden, Dylan Dowden. Good luck telling them apart. The Yackers have 43.2 available. They signed Mitch Bias. The Shorts have 59.4. They signed CCW OG Cody House, second in all-time homers. And then the 8 Balls added Connor Morris, and they've got 67.5 cap space available. So, Thomas, run us down. I think I'm going to give you the floor on each signing. I'm going to let you have your comments, and then I'm going to try to counter, maybe tame you a little bit or feed off the comments that you have. So, first, Moonshots, Austin Church, what's up?
It's pretty predictable, but I'm happy for Austin. He's going to get to play this year. So good for him. You know, he rode the bench all last year and seemed to be okay with it. I am a little surprised he would go back to the Moonshots after they said he was the 5th or 6th most valuable guy on their team. So we'll see how that plays out.
I agree. I think I'm there with you. I will go to my grave being one of the foremost Austin Church defenders. But I just personally know that last year was hard on Austin. So I think he's a guy that's going to come into this year motivated to play better, and to show that he's not just a 5th and 6th bench player. It paid off. They won the title, but he wasn't happy with his role last year, and he'll be the first one to tell you that. Nick Bundy, Pork Pistols, this is your signing. Give it to us. What's up?
I mean, I pretty much had to. He was the best man at my wedding, so he'd probably be pretty pissed if I didn't sign him. I think I know he flirted with going to the short shorts. You think I was just planting stories or planting that there was a little trouble in paradise, but his ego probably wouldn't let him play with you. He likes to think that he's the best hitter on the team, and sometimes he thinks he's better than me, but it's a little closer with me than it is with you. So I knew he wasn't going anywhere, so we ended up re-signing him.
You sent the message to the Slack, and I said, yep, I'm in. Immediately went to my phone and messaged Bundy. I was like, I've got a case of Trulies every night you show up, maybe a bottle of wine if that's what you're into that evening. I'll pay for your fees. I'll do this. I'll do that. And you could tell he was just loving it. But I'm pretty sure you sent him. It was just you trying to figure out my roster, because immediately he started asking, who you signing? What are you thinking? And I was like, Thomas is up to something here. But I agree. I think as soon as you sent that message, every other manager perked up and wanted to go after Bundy. He's just a beast. Fast pitch, it is what it is, but when you walk him, you're likely giving up a bomb, and that's just as scary as a guy walking up to the plate and thinking that he could take a fast pitch off you. So I think that's a really good signing. It's going to be good for your offense, obviously. The Hounds, they signed Dustin Dowden last week. They double up and go Dylan Dowden this week. What are you thinking about that one?
I don't even know who the hell Dylan Dowden is, to be honest. I didn't even know he played last year. So I had to look up his stats, and I guess you want to call this playing. Gave up the 3rd most home runs in the league, even though we only pitched like 14 innings, I guess. There's only room to go up for him, so good signing, I guess. I don't know. Maybe they had to take him. I don't know. I don't know the Dowdens really.
I think the brothers, I think they were a package deal. I admittedly really wanted Dylan. I like his strike throwing ability. You in your notes mentioned strike thrower or cookie thrower. Regardless, as long as he hits the board, I think he's going to find some success. So he's a solid bat. I think I think that's a good signing. And then you get the two brothers together, it locks them both in. I think that's solid value. But you're not in on it.
I don't know. TBD.
TBD.
If he throws strikes, I'm on board. It's a great signing if he throws strikes, because that's in short supply at times in our league, especially for that number 2, number 3 pitcher. Yep. So if that's what they're getting, if they're getting strikes and they're counting on their defense to make outs, they're probably in trouble still because they don't have anybody to field the ball. But at least he's throwing strikes.
I don't know, Dylan out there, he's proven to be a Puma from time to time. Yackers, 43.2 space available after signing Mitch Bias. You have some feelings about this signing. I have some feelings based on your feelings. Go after it.
I mean, if we're talking about, did we get the shock and awe value from Rudy's podcast announcement? Whoop-de-doo, Rudy. I wasn't impressed, but we also knew Mitch was going there. I honestly thought Mitch was going to go to the 8 balls.
I did too.
And I thought that was going to be a week 1 signing. I knew Mitch is highly valuable. But the moment that he did not go to the 8 balls, we knew it was going to be to the Yackers. And it is going to be a good signing. Rudy needed a player like Mitch. His stats aren't the greatest from last year, but I think everybody who's played against him knows that when he's hitting the board, it's going to be a long game. It's just a matter of him getting over that hump. He's in that second tier of pitchers right now. That's just they're waiting for it to click, and once it clicks, like it did for, I think it was Will a year and a half ago, then it's lights out. But he's not quite there yet.
I agree. The velo's there. The lefty. I mean, lefties are tough to hit in wiffle ball as is. You don't see very many of them. Rudy needs the inning workhorse. We know how Rudy's arm is. So Mitch is that guy. And you're exactly right. We saw, I think it was GBL. It was GBL in the national tournament. Mitch went out there and dealt. So he's like a couple steps away from being that stud, I think. And I hope that he's able to take that step this year. It'll just be good for the league. Pitching depth is not our strength as a league, and we kind of talked about that a little earlier. And we need guys like Mitch to kind of figure it out. So no pressure on you, Mitch, but our league's future depends on you.
Yeah. Well, and one more thing. I mean, I think something that's really underrated with Mitch is that he's starting to figure out how to hit too.
That's true.
I definitely noticed the second half of last year, he started taking advantage of that short porch, and his offensive statistics are respectable. So not only is Rudy bringing him in to pitch, but that's another 3rd or 4th bat in the lineup that's really valuable. So,
and Rudy knows that. I mean, here's the thing: Rudy put together an incredible just combination of guys, top to bottom. I think I kind of have it figured out who he's going 5 and 6, but 1 through 4, he's fit the pieces in kind of perfectly. He knows exactly what he was chasing after. From the night of the duo draft, the night that we decided to do the duo draft, I think he knew what he was going to do. And it was just really savvy of him, and I think it's going to pay off this year. So I think we're going to be chasing Rudy. But okay, we go. We'll talk about those power rankings later. We'll get into that. Let's finish our last, 2 squads. We've got the shorts. We signed Cody House, CCW OG. Give me your thoughts on that one.
As far as a player goes, good signing. I think he gets to step away from that role of manager, which, some could argue he did really great because they won a championship. Some might argue that he took a championship squad and now they're not even a team anymore a year later. That takes a lot of hard work. But at the end of the day, he ran off Yonkman, so it's probably pretty even for the league on that. But for the shorts, I think it's a positive. I think he's going to go out and he's going to get to have fun. He's not going to walk up to the ballpark freaking out about, is anybody showing up today? He just gets to go out there and swing the bat. So I think that's a good signing for you guys.
That's the thing. I kind of have this list of guys that I've always wanted to play with. Just guys that have been around, forever, and that we've always been opposite of each other. And Cody House is one of those guys. And I've always felt really bad for and respected the hell out of him for the fact that every single year when you go to the end of the year, like every team will have 4 or 5 guys on their end of the year roster. His is like 12 players deep because every single night, like you said, he's just shooting texts out, hey, can you play wiffle ball tonight? And he might be the single greatest wiffle ball ambassador for Circle City Wiffle. So I am happy to throw him, on the roster and tell him, hey, you don't have to worry about any of that crap this year. Just come play wiffle ball and enjoy it. And it's just always nice to have a dude like Cody House on the squad. So that's probably one guy that's immune from any trash talking. I think he's a league favorite and a fan favorite. So last team, 8 balls, 67.5 left. They've got a lot of cap space. They just ate up a lot of it with Connor Morris. What do you think about that one?
Kind of like the Austin Church signing. It's pretty predictable.
Yeah.
The only thing I was surprised by was that he wasn't their week 1 signing. I think everybody knows that Connor's an 8-ball for life. And Senior was sending out some messages that he was having a hard time getting people to commit. And, you send out a message like that and it's, why don't you just sign the guy that everybody knows is going to your team?
Right.
And he ended up signing John Duran, I believe. So not sure if there was something there that Connor was negotiating or not, but it's a done deal now. So it's a great signing because he's a lefty and he's a great lefty power hitter. He's a great lefty fast pitch hitter. Between him and Taylor, that's a hell of a 1-2 punch. It's just after that, what are they going to do?
And that's very true right there. The 2 lefties is big time. And then you think about the fact that a lot of times Mike Speak goes over to the other side and bats lefty. So you're dealing with 3 lefties. And I sent you a text earlier. I don't know how to defend lefties. Like, for whatever reason, when you're trying to field a ground ball and throw it to the circle, it feels like they're running to a 30-foot base path. Like it's 15 feet shorter. So they have that advantage. And then for whatever reason, when you show up to the park and you're playing against a Mike Speak team, it just feels like they have a shot. Like he's got this certain mojo about him that doesn't ever let his teams just back down or let off or fall into the trap of thinking the game's over. Like they're always hanging around. And I'm kind of afraid to figure out what Taylor DeHart's going to look like when Mike Speak kind of injects some of that demeanor into him. Because Taylor's a guy that can, he's volatile. There's nights sometimes he's gonna get to the park and not be his best self, and then there's nights where he dominates. So if Mike can find a way to get Taylor locked in 24/7, I think Taylor is gonna challenge Will for MVP. Honestly, he was kind of up there for a good portion of last season, and one of my favorite players in the league. So Connor Morris, love the bat. Love the signing, the pairing with Taylor, just like you said. So we go through all those 6 signings. We've got Morris, House, Bias, Dylan Dowden, Nick Bundy, and Austin Church. Any of those a surprise to you? I wanted to ask which one's the biggest surprise, but I don't even know if any of those were a surprise this week.
I'd say the only one that surprised me was probably Cody House to you guys, just because I didn't know that you were going after him. I knew he was going to get valuable here probably that 3rd, 4th week, where he's that perfect 3rd, 4th bat in the lineup, and that's when guys were going to start aiming for him. I honestly had no idea that you were even going for it. So good signing, but a little bit of a surprise.
I'd agree. That would be my pick. And it almost surprised me. We got to the list, and it's not like he was a last resort or anything. It was just I figured other people were going to be all over him, and I might not have a shot. So when he didn't have much interest, I wanted to lock him up early and make sure that he was on my squad because experience matters. I mean, to an extent. So I think we're building a squad around that. Okay. So we move on. We're going to talk about I spent my entire day today. My Fridays at school are super light. So I spent my day building a metric to try to figure out which players are moving the needle most. And this metric for week 1, we went from the duos to 3 players per team, and it spat out that Dustin Dowden moved the needle the most. It made the Hounds a better squad, which when you look at where the Hounds were on our power rankings after the duo draft, which was last, Dustin Dowden kind of gave them a bump. So week 2, I want to hear who was your needle mover, and then I'll tell you mine.
I don't think there's a whole lot of needle movers besides Mitch. The lefty pitcher who can hit. I mean, he's the only one on that list that can do that. So, if he comes out and throws decent at all, he's the biggest pickup this week for any of the teams.
I agree, and that's so what I did was basically had a hitting and pitching ranking. Mitch is like you mentioned, he's able to do a little bit of both, and he comes in and he moved the needle the most. Connor Morris was in second, and then all 4 of the other guys were, not to say this isn't saying that they're not good players. They just didn't improve their team's weaknesses as much as Mitch or Connor did. So Mitch is the biggest needle mover for week 2, and I guess you might call him the best signing. Now we get to the fun part. You get to kind of just crap on each team or pump them up if you want. Power rank the teams 1 through 6 after week 2. So each team has 4 players. By the time this podcast released, I'm sure most of the teams will have signed their 5th, but we're pretending like the Shorts don't have Keegan. 4 players, power rank them. Go ahead. If you want to go 6 to 1 or 1 to 6, I don't care.
We'll start with the 6th team. Even with the Keegan signing, I still put the Shorts at 6th. The pitching, to me, just I've got lots of concerns for you guys. Unless Keegan's going to come back with a Rookie of the Year injury where he's slinging 100-mile-an-hour fastballs for you.
With the elbow or with the shoulder injury.
He does nothing for your pitching that I know of. The league is well aware of Aiden by now. If he's throwing strikes, he's unhittable. But is he going to come to the game that day and show up, or is he more worried about his girlfriend or his job or whatever? Who knows? I know you're probably going to plan on pitching, but we saw how that went last year. So I got you guys in the 6th slot. I don't know about you.
I'm gonna let you go through 6 to 1. I'm not
okay.
Gonna stop
all right.
You keep
all
rolling.
right. Well, that's 6. So number 5, I've got the Hounds. And honestly, from 5 to 1, I mean, holy shit. We're talking about a team that's got Sprinkle on it, who's one of the top 2 pitchers in the league, and Dylan, who's one of the top hitters in the league. I just don't know enough about the Dowdens. Did Dustin's
so you say from 5 to 1, so you think the Shorts don't even belong in that conversation to be 5 to 1 is what you're saying?
Until your pitching gives me a reason to think otherwise. I mean, I know you're going to hit some home runs and put up some runs. It's just whether or not you guys can keep other teams from putting up runs. The one positive you guys do have, and I know Rudy and Alex talked about it, is your defense. You and Florida out there, you guys are going to swoop up everything. I'm just not sure you guys can catch things that are hit on the other side of the fence after Aiden, throws a bunch of lob pitches. So, I think that gap's pretty wide until Aiden figures it out, or if you put in the work this off season and pitch. I think you guys you could be in for a long year if it goes like that. So, anyways, number 5, the Hounds. They could easily jump up there if Dustin Dowden shows up and he's what his value says he is, and he pitches well for him. That's a solid number 2. Who did they? Oh, Dylan. I don't know anything about Dylan, so I'm still a little worried about their offense and their defense. Who's going to play defense when their second pitcher's pitching? I don't. Is it going to be DJ and Dylan. Is that probably what it is?
I mean, looking at it, that's what it has to. I would assume. I don't know.
Number 4, I've got the Yackers, and right in the 3 and 4, I went back and forth. I think I changed it probably a dozen times.
Same.
But I ended up with the Yackers because I'm just taking points off for that podcast spectacle decision like LeBron did, where he thought everybody was going to get all excited.
You're such a boomer. This is the boomer coming out in you.
It is. I'm getting old. I hate when kids are on my lawn, that kind of stuff. But for real, the Yackers are damn good. Rudy, he's one of those guys that he's smart too. He's not out there throwing gas, and Lord knows he can't anymore with his arm, but he's got 3 or 4 pitches that he'll throw, and he'll mix up, and he'll hit the board, and he'll keep teams at bay for a little bit. And shit, Cade's going to be a top 5 hitter, in my opinion, by the end of this year. Now that he's played the season and he knows what to expect, I was super impressed with him toward the end of last year.
I agree.
Mitch seems like he's determined to go out and get better. And then hell yeah, you had Alex at the end of that, and Alex was, I was mad because I was going to draft Alex last year, but Stark swooped him in because Alex was literally the only guy who had a good draft combine, and Stark took him, and Alex turned out really well for the league. So Rudy's got a good team.
Keep going. What do you got?
Next, I got the 8 ball. I got the 8 balls in number 3.
Number 3, okay.
This is 100% respect for Speak Senior figuring out one of his guys and getting him how to pitch. If he's not as good as we think he is, then they're going to drop because it's just Senior, and then their other pitchers aren't going to do it. But Speak Senior's got the track record. He turned McFarland into a top 5 pitcher, and Lord knows what Junior was all these years, the best pitcher in the state. So I'm a believer in Senior's coaching and teaching, and one of them's going to figure out if it's Taylor or Duran. So once they do that, they've got 2 stud pitchers, and pitching's everything in this league. So my only concern for them is going to be their defense, but with Taylor and Connor out there, I think they'll be fine.
I think their defense. I don't think that'll be a concern.
Well,
basically the strong side.
Once Taylor pitches, who's going to play defense? So,
and I think Mike can handle that as long as his knee is fine. But we'll talk about that on my turn.
There's a lot of question marks, but I've got faith in them.
Yeah.
My number 2 team, I'm going to put us number 2 just because I don't like high expectations. That's the only way to let people down. So I'm putting us number 2. I think everybody's given us a lot of credit, which, on paper we do deserve some, but we're friggin' old. So I threw my back out putting third base in last year. Bundy walks around with a pulled hammy when he gets out of bed. I think TP's arm might fall off. So we're banking on Reed coming in and just dominating as much as he possibly can, and then just going from there. And then that leaves the Moonshots number 1, and that's because Will Smithy's MVP, and it's not even close.
Yep.
But that being said, he's put 3 good players behind him on the team already. I was kind of hoping he was going to have to pick up a bunch of rookies and lower guys, but somehow he's got Church and Boris and T. Greg, and I think that's the top team right now.
And it really seemed like he was going to have scraps, and then a couple of people signed up, and it bumped the cap. I think their cap ends up perfectly lining up with the total of those 4 plus 2 minimums. Like it was meant to be. They were meant to run it back or whatever. So you're absolutely right there. So I'll just give you a little spoiler. My power rankings exactly mirror yours, but I had a different method of going about it, which I texted to you today. I went through and I've been looking at the fast pitch era stats. So 2019 is when CCW finally said, screw it, let's just start throwing as hard as we can. So from 2019 and on is our fast pitch era, and I looked at those stats and through some methods and just having a really light day at school and a quiet office and a computer. I came up with expected runs scored for each team and expected runs allowed, and then through those two numbers, I was able to come up with the Pythagorean win percentage for each squad. So coming in last place, and it's no secret, our ERA is going to be really high is the shorts. Again, like you touched on, just a lot of wild pitching. Going to have velo out the ass, but velo that's nowhere near the zone, at least in terms of historical results. And if you can't hit the board, then you're going to have to score a lot of runs. And a lot of times, a lot of runs doesn't even matter in that case. So I've been on a lot of teams like this where we've tried to rely on offense, and it's really tough to win titles or even win ball games when you're solely reliant upon the offense. So shorts come in at 6-10. This is a 16-game schedule. 6-10, last place. In fifth place at 7-9, I've got the Hounds. I kind of love their pieces. I love the Dustin Dowden signing. I think it fits perfectly with they needed a two-way guy. He's kind of a sleeper. So fifth place is a little low for what I see their ceiling as. But Dylan's going to really have to. Dylan was streaky last year. He had some patches where he would struggle and then he would get really hot. And I think without that protection of myself and Taylor in the lineup, he's going to find it a little more difficult to have those struggles be hidden. They're gonna be amplified a little bit, and he's got to figure out how to carry an offense. So Hounds 7-9, fifth place. Third and fourth place interchangeable, just like you said. Yackers, 8 balls. I have them both at 8 and 8. I'll start with the 8 balls. I have all the belief in the world, and Mike Speaks Sr. So this team could end up in first place, and I would sit here saying I'm not surprised. I'm not surprised at all. They went into that semifinal against the Moonshots with us saying they have no shot. There's no chance they win this. And it took a Tyler Gregory dribbler to send the Moonshots to the championship over the 8 balls. Like Mike Speak, I don't freaking get how he does it, but every single team he takes out there is going to compete and like they're title contenders. That's just what they are. And he'll be 75 years old and still pitching 3 ERAs and pissing all of us off and eating cherries and edibles and whatever he's doing out there. But he's going to be kicking our ass until the day that he dies. So 8 balls, third or fourth, that's where I've got him right now. And then Yackers, third or fourth. Freaking love their squad. They're probably this low because their stats last year aren't amazing, but they're like a super projectable team. Like Gurchev, I don't think the sophomore slump exists in CCW. Gurchev, I think, grows. Cade Luker he's a Silver Slugger contender for as long as he plays. That dude's a stud. And then we've already talked about Mitch Bias. We think that guy's going to eventually be a Cy Young contender if it clicks for him. Pork Pistols, number 2, 9-7. Love this team. But like you said, the bottom can fall out really quickly. Like all of a sudden Reed doesn't find the zone, TPs, arm starts hurting. These aren't like situations that are way off in imaginary land. Like these are real things that are very possibly going to happen. You throw out your back, Nick Bundy finds a girlfriend in California or pulls his hamstring. Like this is a team that I think is on paper the best squad top to bottom, but can also be the worst really quickly. And then Moonshots 10-6, number 1 squad. I have so much respect for Austin Church and Blake Vorst, the wiffle ball players. I think really quickly they'll outplay their value and not be eligible to play on the Moonshots anymore because they're really good players. But I think they're favorites to win the title this year because, like you said, Will was able to put 3 studs underneath them, and they're going to run it back. And when you have a Will Smithy on your team, you've got a shot. So 1 through 6, Moonshots, Pistols, Yackers, 8 balls, Hounds, and Shorts. I think we're exactly the same. And so I guess my model is perfect. I've created the perfect model. Okay, we got 2 things left. One serious, one not so serious. Let's do the serious one first. And I want to talk about and rank who you think the top 5 most valuable players are going to be at the end of 2022. So, not your 5 best or most talented guys. Who do you think is going to spit out the highest player value by the end of this season?
We start with number 5.
If you want, I don't care.
Okay. My number 5 might be a little bit surprised. We just talked about him, but I think Cade Luker is primed to have a huge offensive year this year. Yeah, that lefty we talked about earlier, you know, trying to figure out why we can't field those ground balls from lefties, but you know that whoever set up the Dirtyard wasn't really thinking ahead, because you got that sun that always seems to be coming up when lefties are up. You know, they put that wicked spin on it. I think he's primed to have some huge offensive stats this year. You know, also predicting Rudy's arm might fall off, and Cade might have to get on the mound and figure it out for him. So that might be a little bit of a bold prediction, but I'm putting him at number 5. Number 4 is probably another lefty. I think Taylor. I think Senior figures it out with Taylor, and Taylor's on the bump, shutting people down and hitting the shit out of the ball. You know, his value was already super high as it was, but I think he makes that jump up into the top 5. Number 3 is I'm gonna put Sprinkle there. He's already one of the best pitchers in the league, obviously, but I think what's really going to show up this year for him is he's pitching against good lineups every game. And I think that's really where his value is going to be shown, is that he hits the board so consistently. You know, he's going to make good offenses look bad, and that's tough to do. So I think his value is going to look even higher this year, even though he's still just a pitcher only. I think he's going to look really good. My number 2 is, I'm optimistic and I'm really hopeful. Reed Werner. You know, his value numbers already say he's number 2, but I think he makes another jump. He keeps figuring it out on the mound, and I think he closes that gap with Will a little bit this year. And hopefully by the end of the year, he's, you know, giving him such a run that he keeps the Pork Pistols in contention for a championship. And then my number 1 is Will. You know, he was MVP and it wasn't even close. And that damn guy just wants to get better. What can you do about that? I mean, it's, you know, it's a Michael Jordan, LeBron James mentality of somebody who says, I'm head and shoulders above the next guy, and I want to make that gap even bigger. You know, it's really fun to watch. It's fun to be around somebody like that, because, you know, it'd be easy for him to coast and take it off and, hey, I want a championship. But, you know, he was out there once the season was over, you know, on the mound pitching, getting ready for the NWLA. So, you know, I'm happy for the guy and look forward to competing against him.
1 and 2, I think, are shoe-ins. I think Will's going to be your most valuable player, barring something unfortunate. I mean, he could hit a slump or anything, but I think it takes like an injury or a life event that moves him away from wiffle ball to not be our league's most valuable player.
He did get married, so who knows?
Yeah, he's married. Maybe a kid pops into his life, and someone else gets a chance at MVP this summer. So I think Reed is very likely to be number 2, but I think Rudy is hot on his heels. Both guys have different circumstances that can make them shaky for those spots. Reed's control as a pitcher is one, and then his hitting has been very up and down throughout his short career. He's shown flashes of being like a guy that you're really afraid of, like a Taylor DeHart, and then there are times where when you look at the Moonshots lineup and you're relieved to be facing Reed because he's got a hole in his bat that night. So it just kind of it depends on both sides. Does he find consistency? And if he does, he becomes, like Mike Sr. said, an MVP candidate really easily. And then Rudy's issue is just going to be health. As you know, as he gets a little older. When you are as solid as he is from both sides, he turned in a 28-7 from the hitter side and a 32-4 from the pitcher side. It's hard to fall outside of the top 3. So I think he's easily one of the best all around guys. And then 4 and 5, this is where you threw in a Cade Luker. This is 4, 5 are where your one-way guys come in, or a really good hitter who finds out he can pitch that year, or a good pitcher that finds out he can hit. So we're talking guys like Sprinkle, myself, Aiden, Taylor DeHart, Cade Luker. These are all guys that turn in really good value from one side, or like solid value from both sides. So I'm going to put myself at the 5 spot. I think hitting last year, you saw what the ceiling is there. So for like a guy for like Cade to jump me, he's got to out hit me. And like you said, we haven't seen him pitch. So unless he starts throwing a bunch, I don't think the value jumps mine. And then number 4, I love Taylor DeHart in that slot. Like you talked about Mike getting a hold of him. I think like Taylor DeHart's my dark horse MVP. And we saw through the first it felt like for a long time him and Will were pretty neck and neck for the MVP race, where we would go out and we were kind of talking about it, and we are like, I don't know who I would choose right now. And then Will kind of took off at the end of the year. But he's a stud, and if Mike can get a hold of him, is one of our just most talented athletic dudes, who I think becomes like a household name across the country, honestly. My bubble guys that I'm like kind of really just excited about this year. I think Blake Boris makes a huge jump. His value is listed at 28.9, but when I was going through doing his pitching value, I knocked it down because I didn't want him to be overvalued. He didn't pitch a lot, so I didn't find it fair to give him a super high pitching value. But if he can find some of his roots, he's a really good two-way player. Yourself, I think looking at your lineup, are you considering yourself your third pitcher?
It's a combination of me, Nick, and TP at this point.
Yeah. And the innings you put out weren't horrible. So like, I think there's probably room for you to go down as a hitter. You had an amazing last year. But I think there's a lot of room for you to go up, especially if you have to pitch and like you go out there with that mindset. So I think you, Aiden, Blake, and Taylor are like my dark horses to slide up into that top 5 and to be considered MVP candidates.
Yeah, my pitching stats are skewed, kind of like Plord's were last year from the perfect game against it's easy to look at the stats and say, oh, that guy, he might be a decent pitcher, but Plord threw against the Sisters of the Poor Noodlers for a game and got a perfect game out of it. And I think I threw against the Outlaws when I wasn't hitting the board, but they were still swinging at everything. So
it was mainly the eye test. I noticed you had something to you out there, and it's easy to tell when a guy has something and just doesn't have anything at all, and you would fall in that other category of at least being like weird. So like you have the sidearm motion where like if you did find the zone, I think it would be tough to hit consistently. You could turn in a 5 ERA and jump up there. So
yeah, and that's I forgot. I mean, I could be one of those bubble guys that you talked about earlier, and I had. No disrespect to you. Obviously, you had an amazing offensive year last year, but I put you on my bubble because I think you've got your work cut out for you with Aiden and some of those guys, and that can distract you. Last year offensively, your team had absolutely everything going for it, and that you had 3 of the best hitters in the league. You knew what you got to do when you showed up. It's you, Taylor, and DJ, and you get to swing your dicks off, and you guys crushed it. I still think you're an amazing hitter, but I think you're probably going to regress a little bit from stress, just stressing over Aiden, stressing over, your lineup a little bit.
I don't think regression from 49 bombs is like a hot take though. Like no,
it's not.
It's going to happen.
Yeah.
I'm not hitting 49 again.
Yeah. I mean, your regression would be in a career year for anybody else. So, right. That's not a knock. That's just, the
you're absolutely right. I love the underdog status. I'm not trying to turn it into like some LeBron situation, like they sleeping on us, blah, 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 keep that same energy. But I do love, I love Keegan because he's continuously just slept on as a hitter, I think. Aiden is probably one of the league's favorite, most hateable players. Like everybody loves to hate on Aiden. So I have a roster full of guys that I'm really pumped to see go out there and have a good year, including myself. Like I'm with the makeup of the roster, kind of betting on myself to go like not learn how to pitch, to go take my arm seriously this off season, and get some control back. So that's exciting. I think our floor is really low, and that's a good spot to be in.
Yeah, and my last bubble guy that I should just say, just because I don't want him thinking that I don't think he's good, but I mean obviously Rudy is one of the most valuable guys in the league,
Yeah.
and he does it on top of all the other things he does for the league when it comes to the podcasts and the Dirtyard dishes and doing the announcing and getting all that set up, and then he still goes out and he does what he does. It's pretty awesome. That being said, it's age is starting to catch up to him a little bit, and that's the only reason I didn't have him in the top five. I voted for him for MVP. I think two or 3 years ago, and I just thought as a two-way player he was the best one out there, and he's still a damn good two-way player that is up there. I just think age is catching up to him a little bit. The pitching, because he doesn't have the flame throwing anymore. I mean, I know he threw a little harder a few years ago. I think some of these good lineups hit him a little more now. But I mean, he's still going to be one of the top 10 players in the league, no doubt.
Oh yeah, I mean that's his floor. Like number 10 is his
Right.
floor. And like you said, he does all of this, and then he still comes out and puts together these seasons. He's just he's a really good player on both sides, and but I do see his roster composition as him kind of admitting like for so long we've been used to Rudy's rosters being just like skeleton rosters where he's the guy, and it feels like this is dumb. This is a weird take, but it feels like he is kind of saying like he's ready to step back and not be the guy on a team. Like he's going to let Cade and Mitch and Alex kind of carry a lot of this load, and it might make things easier on Rudy to where he plays better. Like it's a little of a counterintuitive adjustment, I guess, where he's not so stressed. Like you said about the shorts, the lineup is a constant stress. His is going to be the opposite end, where in the years past he has been stressed about his roster. So I think that could lead to an even better season for him this year. We'll see.
Yeah. If Mitch clicks and Rudy's their number 2, then they're going to be a top 2 team. Probably.
God, if Rudy's the 2, we're done.
Yeah,
we're done. Okay, your last point. Let's wrap up this podcast with your idea. I don't endorse this, but I will condone it. I'll just let you have the floor.
All right. So I've noticed that the league needs more fans at times, and specifically more female fans. My wife comes out and watches damn near every game, and she's sitting on the corner by herself a lot of the times. And so we need to figure out a way to get some of the ladies out there to support the league. So I asked my wife, Ashley, to give me her rankings of the top 5 hottest guys in the league. So here they are. Honorable mention was Austin Church.
Okay.
And so I don't know if a lot of you remember out at Wiffle Palooza last year, she actually got a lot of shit because I think Church was flirting with her and she was flirting back. And Mandy and some of the girls thought she's being a little too chummy with him. So, she thinks he's a cute guy and he's funny and he's friendly when he's drinking. So he made honorable mention.
Here we go.
Number 5 is Will Smithy.
Oh!
I was a little shocked by this one, but my wife is a cleat chaser, and she respects talent. And she said, he's MVP, so that obviously gets some points. But he also got a lot of points at seniors' Halloween party when he was dancing.
Oh, those dance moves were impressive.
Yep.
I saw the video.
So she was a big fan of those. She thought that was great. So he's got number 5. Number 4 was give me a second to remember. It is senior. It was Speak Senior.
Okay.
She likes his smile. He's a gray fox. And she loves his Halloween party.
Got the house, the truck, the hair. Like when he's got his hat on and it's just flowing. Oh,
The man oozes confidence.
oh, it's bad.
Yep. So, I honestly thought number 4 was a little low, and you'll
I
see why
agree.
in a minute. Number 3 was Keegan.
Yeah.
And when I asked, what is it about Keegan? And she just goes, I love Keegan. I love him.
That's all anybody can say. I don't know what it is about Keegan. I just love him. I love Keegan.
He's got a sunny disposition. You just smile when you're around the guy. So, I'm not mad at all about that. She did say that Keegan was, I think, the first guy to come up and talk to her, a few years ago at the league, and that's half the battle is talking to the ladies. So Keegan got that. Number 2, I'm not too happy with her on, but it is you, the commissioner.
First is the worst, second is the best. Thank you, Ash.
Yep. She said you had a shot at number 1, but the temper tantrums dropped you.
That's fair. I get it.
Yeah, but she did say, she really enjoys coming out before the game starts. You always see her wheeling her chair in and sitting there while, we're lining the field. But she said she loves watching the commissioner mow the grass with his shirt off. So that's why you got number 2. And then number 1, not really a surprise, Taylor DeHart. I told her he cut his hair off. I don't know if that's that.
That's an important distinction. Is it Buzz Taylor or Jesus Taylor? Which one's
Jesus Taylor was number 1, hands down. And she still, even with the buzzed hair, he still got it. He's still number 1.
No,
so,
I agree. I think there's 2. It's like 1A. 1A is Jesus Taylor. 1B is Buzz Taylor. They're both just separate guys, but like.
I'd put Jesus Taylor on the cover of a magazine.
So Blake Borst made no mention in this list.
No,
he just hasn't seen Blake Borst then.
She asked for names, and honestly, I thought there was going to be a few others. I thought Cade's a good-looking gentleman.
Cade isn't like he's not what would you say that he's not implanted enough yet. Like he hasn't been around enough. As soon as you get to know him, she'll latch on.
Yeah, I mean there's a lot of other good-looking guys. I was pretty upset I didn't even make honorable mention, but that just tells you how good-looking the league is.
Circle City's got a great-looking league. It's just Indianapolis. It's a hot spot. Yeah. Well, Thomas, this was a pleasure. I'm pretty sure we're way over the typical length of a podcast episode, so the likelihood that anybody made it to this point in the podcast is low. So I don't know. I don't really know what to leave people with. Like, thank you. Is that what we're supposed to say?
Sorry. Hope they're excited for the season as we are.
We're so pumped for the season. It's just how far? It's only February. That's the issue. Like we've got all this excitement. We're kind of like peaking right now, and then I look out the window and there's still freaking chunks of ice all over the ground, and I want to cry.
I'm pumped for Rudy's indoor tournament in March. Hopefully that goes over well, and we get to do that more often.
That's true. That's like a good checkpoint. We get to that, it'll, give us a little bit of our wiffle ball itch, whatever you want to call it, and that'll maybe hold us over until springtime or summer, I guess. All right, dude. This was fun. Week 2. By the time this comes out, I'm sure most of our week 3 signings will have been made. I don't know who's committed to that podcast. I want to say Rudy. I know Rudy, Blake, and Reed threw their names in the ring. So look out for some of those guys talking on this matter next week. If Thomas or myself has made you mad with this episode, I'm sorry. But we're just talking numbers. We're talking numbers. That's what it is.
I think everybody in the league knows we love them and that we're excited that everybody's coming back. So,
well, here's the deal.
Hopefully,
no matter what they heard, you looked me straight in the eye tonight and told me my team was, bar none, the basement of the league. So that's what we have to work on. So if anybody has to be mad, it's probably me, to be honest.
Yeah, but you got to be mad with yourself because you did it to yourself.
I did exactly what I wanted to do. We're going to have a good 2022.
Yep.
Okay, dude. Have a great night.
Right.
Have a great weekend. Everybody, tune in next week to the 6th episode of Dirtyard Dish. Thank you for listening tonight from Thomas and Dudis, number 2 sexiest guy in the league. Peace.
I can't wait to get back on the road again. Back again. Dude, like for the Americans. Back home again. Back home again. In Indiana land.